for a long time. And I met him when he was a coach not too far from here, part of the Blackzilians, and to see him do what he's done over the last 5, 6, 7 years is amazing, because this is not an easy thing to do. To open up a gym the way he's done it, it's not an easy thing to do. People that have gyms go in debt, and you do it because you love it. Not to drive the Ferrari, because I don't see too many.
I got a Ford Explorer. And it leases up, so.
Yeah, I got that Navigator, and it's mine for the next 10 years.
Yes.
Because as soon as I'm done paying for it in another 2 years, that's it. I'm like, now I keep it. Then I get it.
You got a Dodge Ram.
I got a Dodge Ram.
And Dr. Peacock has been doing this for a long time. He's a PhD professor at Nova. All right, and this guy's got, you wanted weight cutting? This guy's got weight cutting to the gram of carbs. I'm old school, I've probably been involved in plus or minus 1,000 weight cuts. My last weight cut was at 46, 57 pounds. So I'm no stranger to weight cuts. I mean, I've done it at 46, I've done it in my 40s, and I do weight cuts the old-fashioned way. I've updated a little bit, but this guy here is like grams and ounces. So right now, if you got any questions, fire away at them. If not, I'll ask them, because I can sit with these guys for hours and ask questions. So go ahead, you have them here for a little bit, because they're going to be going home. They have a life.
I'll go first. When it comes to the weight cut, how soon? Is it okay, we have to fight, and we have the possibility we start now, but how soon do you get the contract signed so it's guaranteed? So how soon do you start?
I think that's a really tricky question, and I think we've had a lot of changes in what we've been doing in terms of preparation, especially in light of the COVID. You got to think with these guys, if they're fighting once to twice a year, and now we have a pandemic like this where maybe that one of those 2 fights isn't there, that's half their income for the year. So we've been kind of in a place where we've had to change up a lot of our training to almost treat everybody as if they are in camp. In that case where it's kind of been, we've really increased, like from the strength and conditioning side, it's been very much more metabolic than it's ever been. There's not been a lot of foundation working into that preparation. So I think in that regard, that's been a little bit different in what we're trying to do. In an ideal world for us, we like to kind of get that evaluation at the 8-week point. So when we hit that 8-week point, that's where our evaluation comes in. If we can be able to work really high volume and be able to start getting that weight management sort of within, from week 8 to about week 3. That 5-week window is where we really want to be able to get them to exactly where we want them to cut from. If they can take those last 2 weeks of training and be exactly where we want them to be come fight week and pull that weight off, we're in a really good place, because realistically, if you think about it, they're going to spend probably the bulk of their 2 weeks of their most intensive fight training preparation at the weight that they're going into fight week at. They're going to pull that weight off as fast as possible, and in an ideal world, they're going to put that right where those 2 weeks were, and that's kind of the window. So I think really got a couple important points. I think that week 8, I think that week 3, and I think that fight week are probably your most important points where you need to be really dialed in with this.
Probably marinating in the sauna for hours now.
Exactly right. I mean, for the most part, we talk about this. We don't miss weight.
No.
That's something we don't do.
Is 10% still the thumb that you want to be out? So if you're a 170, if you're going to be weighing in at 170, you want to be in that 187 range?
I think the 10% range is a really good mark. There are certain guys like, we have our Mike Chandlers who 155, we're allowed to usually say about 12 to 13% is okay for somebody like him. I mean, it's just is what he is. Those guys that hold more muscle are going to probably have that ability to be able to fluctuate that water. But as a rule of thumb, I think if you use that 10%, I think you're going to be in a good spot.
Tabao.
Yeah.
Tabao is one of those animals that would drop 30 pounds on a month notice. We did it here. 30 pounds on a month notice. You wonder, talk about the genetics that are coming into the sport. Okay, the democratization of sport is, what genetics are we bringing in? I don't think we're seeing the best fighters on the planet. We're seeing the best fighters that have a genetic ability to drop 10, 12%, 15% of their body weight and not have kidney failure. Because kidney or a heart attack, when you drop that much plasma, all right, your heart is spitting out honey. So imagine that your heart needs to spit out, cranberry to get to all the little capillaries and arteries and, all that. And now all of a sudden you're spitting molasses. If that blood doesn't go to the heart, it's a heart attack. If it doesn't get to the brain, it's a stroke. Not to mention the kidneys. My last weight cut from 252 to 197, I was fine. Well, I did it over 7 months. And 4 days out when I went to Vegas, I was at 209. And I made 97. So I was about 10, 11 pounds out. And it was a good weight cut. And I had a wonderful weight cut, but my kidneys started to spasm. That tells you, I no longer, if I had it at one time, I dropped 11 pounds in 1 day. If I had it at one time, I didn't have it at 46. My kidneys were not taking it. I mean, it almost like I'm passing a kidney stone type of thing. It spasm, made weight. So you gotta look at that too.
I think that's a pretty valid point too. You hit that realization of, at that point in time, like this isn't right for me anymore. You're going to see that evolution with these guys too as they start to get older. I mean, this weight cut doesn't, you start to gain more knowledge, but the weight cut process doesn't become more efficient. It becomes more variable as you start to see them age and the body change. And, realistically, a lot of our guys too, when we get them at a younger age, they're still developing. I mean, we see some of these guys that come in.
You also have to understand weight cutting and fighting is different than weight cutting and doing something else. Because the most important thing is that you mentally strong and feel good. And you go into a fight where you already been through a war to make weight, and then the next day you have to just get your mind straight again to fight, and then the guy who's hurting you is we don't miss a lot of weight because we keep it the same way, but we have people sometimes before doing it a different way, and everybody has a different way. All these guys have a different way. They all think they know it, but we keep it to scientists, people that go to school for it. But people cramping up. Like they're in the bathtub and they're like, help me, I'm cramping up. And I always said to Gilbert that was a 170 guy. Not because he cannot make 155, he made it and he did good, but you have no chin when you make so much weight cut, you just don't react to it. And now he has the energy to go 5 rounds. Because strong as shit, training and the right weight. And also I think in our sport, I think fighting and training around 20 pounds, 15 to 20 pounds around your weight class you fight, your brain and your body just reacts the right way of fighting life. Otherwise it's just going to be slow and sluggish. And you have an advantage with weight in 1 round, maybe the first round you'll be stronger than the other guy. But then you see, as a fighter, you see the guy just falling apart and getting tired. And there's nothing better than seeing a big guy getting tired, because then you know, okay, I'm going to go,
And you can see when they're failing to weight cut versus to conditioning. Because the conditioning failing happens gradually.
Yeah.
The weight cut, the last hard weight cut that I made, I went from 217 to 154 in 7 months again. Okay? 217, because I went from playing football at U of M back to fighting. So I was fighting, then football, then back. And I didn't replenish right. First round, bang, bang, bang. It was amateur boxing and I cut the guy. That's how hard I was hitting this dude. And I cut him with a jab. I remember going, boom! And he just slid out. Whoop your ass. I come into the second round and I threw a right hand. I missed, and then it came back with like, and it was just one shot. And got slow, like a nightmare, where you see the guy and you just can't hit him, and you see the shit coming, and you're going, oh no, And I got lit up second and third round, and you can see when it's a weight cut issue because the conditioning goes like that. And talk about chin, you have to understand when you reduce water, okay, when you reduce water up here, okay, that thing loses the cushion. And that's one of the reasons where your chin is suspect, because your ability to get concussed goes through the roof when you're dehydrated. And we're not sure right now if we can dehydrate 17 pounds and then put it back. Okay, where does it come back? Does it come back to the brain as fast, or the first thing is muscle? So we don't even know that. We don't even know how much fluid the brain loses on a weight cut like that, and what is the replenishment time.
Speaking of that, how do you manage like glycogen depletion in terms of performance whenever, especially you have those last 2 or 3 weeks of training where the intensity is really, really high, but they're still wanting to cut weight, so you don't want to take away from performance in the gym or on the max or whatever. If you're still pulling out carbohydrates or you're still dropping calories at the same time, you know, especially we work with a lot of amateur fighters who a lot of times will take a week or take a fight 2 weeks out, because that's all they can get. So then they have to drop 10 pounds in 2 weeks and still have enough juice to throw
Yeah,
it.
10 pounds in 2 weeks for these guys.
Right.
That's a vacation. 10 pounds in 2 weeks, are you kidding me?
Sure.
It's more like 10 pounds in 6 hours, you know, for some of these guys. I saw Matt Hughes drop 10 pounds in about 8 hours. You know, so, what do you think?
I think for us, I think a big thing is communication. I mean, we talk about this a lot, you know, like we have somebody fighting Bellator next week that we've seen this kind of up and down with him, and I think the communication between the coach and staff, and I think that's an important thing, like, as the preparation, as the strength and conditioning guy, you gotta have a direct line. You can't be a guessing game, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, you're out there doing your best, but if you're limited in the information, if your only source of information is the fighter providing the information, you're in a bad situation. You have to understand what they actually did compared to what they're doing. And I think that just a lot of that becomes management, understanding what your role is. I mean, realistically, if you're in a situation like that where they're being depleted so much, maybe the best thing for you to do is to give them the night off. Be the one to make the adjustment. I think as strength and conditioning coaches, I think you need to be the one to make the adjustments, you know, more than anybody else, because, you know, they're skilled at teaching them how to fight. We're skilled at trying to get them to the fight healthy, trying to get them to the fight on weight, trying to get them to be able to perform at their best. But, you know, you got to remember, the best fighter most likely is always going to win, and that's why they're the piece that has to make sure that they get that priority in terms of the training and stuff like that. So I think that's the biggest thing, you know, really communicating. You know, I'm looking at, like, for my strength and conditioning and stuff like that, I would say our last 2 weeks, I mean, I can't imagine having them in for more than 35, 40 minutes max, you know, and that's kind of one of those things where I think over time with the fighters, they're so used to, for whatever reason, people ramping them up all the way up until fight week, and that's not the case. I mean, for us, when we hit about that 3, you know, from my perspective, from my portion of preparation, when I hit about that 3-week mark, that's when we're really tapering, and we're really trying to make sure that they have the best abilities to enhance their skills for that last 2 weeks, and their game planning and all those things. So I think that's kind of an important piece to it.
Yeah, although I'll manipulate, I don't want to say I manipulate carbs, because I don't manipulate carbs from a standpoint if you look at straight carbs. Now, if you're looking at sugar, that's different. But, I mean, if you, for example, broccoli, it's 85% carbs. So you can't tell me that's a low carbohydrate food. Now, it may be a low sugar food, and that's why one of the things we're going to go through is nutrient timing. If after every session you understand you've got about a 2-hour window, and I like 30 minutes, to replenish the glycogen stores, because if you miss that 2-hour window, it takes almost like 40 some odd hours to replenish, or at least 24 hours to replenish that. Make sure that if they go with Henri in the morning, they have a little shake with a little bit of good carbs, all right? Then take a nap, and then they go back for the afternoon, maybe come here in the middle of the day, whatever it is, you know, the nutrient time is going to be really, really smart. I think going into that 3rd week, going into a month out at the right weight is the key. Because if you're not at the right weight, or if you take a short notice fight and you're 20 pounds up and you're taking it on 3 weeks notice, it's not gonna be a pretty camp. I get it, you need the money, you have the opportunity, I understand, and we'll go for it. But you're not setting yourself up for a good situation. For example, Gilbert. Okay, Gilbert took some short notice. He took, what, 2 fights in 6 weeks? So I didn't want it, but he said, I'm gonna take it, coach, I'm in shape, and it turned out fantastic. For this one, you don't want to take this fight with Usman on short notice. I think I like our chances a lot, but like Corey says, 8 weeks out, I told him, I said, right now, you're 95, fine. Come January, you're gonna be hovering around under 190. So you wanna be 88, 89 come January. And those last 4, boom. We hit them with one metabolic shot, good shot, about 10 days out. They're coming down. So when they come in here, we just tap them, boom, 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 and we do a metabolic hit once a week. Once a week, fight time. It's UFC at IHB, about 10 days out. And then the last week, it's travel and weight cut and management, you know. So I'm not a huge fan of manipulating carbs. I would manipulate carbs if I'm doing bodybuilding, but like Henry said, making weight for bodybuilding is one thing. Making weight for this animal here, that's a whole different ballgame. And if you're doing judo or wrestling where you make weight and immediately, or jujitsu, and immediately you're getting after it, that's even a worse animal. At least we got 24 hours to replenish. Those guys there, nothing. An hour, and in your case, weigh with your gi, and 5 minutes and you're on the mat. So if you're making weight for that, woo, you got it.
That's why I went up the weight class.
Yeah, Dustin Van said it, he goes, my nutrition is a weapon. That's what one thing I love. My nutrition is a weapon. I heard that 20 years ago. We knew it. And the 10%, you know who's, the first time I heard that 10%? 1975, Dan Gates. Dan Gates. They were asking, we were at Killian High, and we were at a big thing with him for a Saturday. And they asked him, what percent of weight do you like to cut? He goes, 10%. 75. So it's nothing new. It's coming along and it's practitioners. And now you got a scientist telling you, pretty close.
So I have a question. So to avoid a situation like that where you might take a fight on short notice, because you hear about guys that like just go off the deep end and eat and gain like 30 pounds and whatever, and then they can't make weight, you know. So what do you recommend like let's say if they fight at 170, what's the most they should gain between fights so they don't have to have that problem?
I think, you know, you usually use the 12%. When you're out of camp, you use the 12%. You know, that's kind of your range, but you like that idea, that 8 to 10% when you go into camp.
Yeah.
Boxing too, you guys.
Well, I mean, even coming into like fight week, 8 to 10% is usually what most guys are going to be pulling off. Even 10% of the weight class. So if it's 140, you got 14 pounds to deal with the last 7 weeks.
Yeah. But, you know, I think the biggest thing, and realistically, it's kind of been that buy-in. I think it's been a lot of the accountability in the gym and the amount of people around them that are doing these kind of things. I think it's kind of become culture, what they're doing, for most of them. I won't say all of them, we've still got some people, but I think for the most part, you know, providing them that information, you know, I think, you know, as much as I don't want to see a bad weight cut, I think a bad weight cut's a really big learning opportunity for the fighter. I mean, a fighter goes out and performs, hopefully still wins and overperforms, but learns from that. They don't ever want to feel that again.
Those of you who may not know Chris Algieri, okay, boxing extraordinaire, nutritionist, real smart guy, and just happens to be a nice guy, which is always a plus. Henry, I have a question for you, okay, because I know one of the reasons I love the way Henry trains is Henry is not an abusive trainer. He's one of the modern guys that I think has gotten it. So can you tell us about how much live training you guys do, and what is your philosophy when you're having guys train live? What are your instructions? What's your intentions? And how do you contrast yourself to some of these gyms that just have wars? Worse wars in the gyms than you see in the cage in UFC.
Yeah.
So what's your philosophy and what's your approach to that?
Well, I think it's kind of real simple. First of all, the culture in the gym is important. Like who's in your gym, and if you kind of have rules and everybody that's there know the rules, then you can go hard with the people that know. Like at the end of the day, we're like in a hard game. So we spar once a week hard, like real hard, and that doesn't mean that I spar with a guy that doesn't know what he's doing and try to knock him up. But I go with my colleague. I call all our guys our business partners on the mat, And we go hard because at the end of the day we want a right hand or a good kick. You cannot just stop it right before it lands. It needs to land, but not with somebody who doesn't know what he's doing. So you go hard, and then the other sparring that we do is less hard in the sense of maybe smaller gloves, more technical. But there's no such way, I believe, and I come from kickboxing again, is that hard sparring is very important. And drills too. Like you need to get tired when you drill. I hear a lot of terms of play sparring and technical stuff. Yeah, I'm also old school, you know, so I maybe when I say it, it's kind of funny, but I know one thing that you need to so-called sharpen iron with iron, they say, so it goes a little hard. But number of people that don't know what they're doing, so the intensity needs to be high. And also I think fight training is the most important training there is. So you need to be fight specific, you need to be just like being able to understand how far you can go with somebody.
Right.
And then our sport is more difficult because again, I come from kickboxing, Chris comes from kickboxing to boxing now. But in MMA you have jiu-jitsu, you have wrestling, you have kickboxing, you have taekwondo, you have jiu-jitsu, you have strength conditioning, you have yoga, you have pilates, they do whatever they can to get an advantage. While the basic is really simple. If you can punch somebody with a jab in the face, in boxing, you win the fight. In kickboxing, if you give a low kick with it, you win the fight. In MMA, if you take a takedown with it, you win the fight. So people make it very, very difficult. We do simple things a lot and hard. I think that's our motto. And again, the rules and the culture in the gym, I think that's very important. These people know what they're doing. If we have an idiot in the gym, he won't be in the gym. Just not in the gym.
When you say hard, I mean, are you looking at intensity, fight hard, or is there a, we're gonna go hard, but it's a mutual work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work with you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna make you work, but if I mean, when I throw the right hand, it's not gonna be like, you know, I'm throwing the right hand like I'm in the UFC where I'm gonna take your head
I
off.
think Chris knows in boxing is, I think he knows better than me, it's much different because they have spar partners that they pay and they come in and they get beat up. But we all have that. We spar most of the time with each other. We're all business partners.
Right.
We all try to get safely to the fight, and they sometimes.
There's much less of a team aspect in boxing.
Right.
Boxing gym is not a team sport. It's not like an MMA gym where, again, because you guys have so many disciplines to work on at any one particular time, and you're dealing with the same guys every day. We're not like that. We go to other gyms, other guys come from gyms to our gym, and basically you're there to beat them up, and they're there to beat you up. So we have a lot more kind of race pace work than MMA guys or even kickboxers do.
Coming off of 10 rounds of that?
Question on, because when I was coming up as an athlete, I had the good fortune of being able to observe Angelo Dundee, Lou Duba at the Fifth Street Gym in Miami Beach. We had Kid Gavilan in Coconut Grove. You know, I'm just old, so I had the chance to spar with Alexis Arguello, Roberto Durando, friends of my dad's. Used to eat at my dad's restaurant. So not that I'm good, and not that I'm bragging. I just had good family friends, and I was allowed to be in a ring where I didn't belong. But I saw them work, especially in judo, what they call situational, and I want to know if you guys use this approach. For example, let's say that I want to practice rear naked choke, coming in and setting it up from different situations. And my old coach said, well, if we allow Randori, and we go bang, 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 how many rear naked chokes are you going to get? Let's say. Not many, because he's not going to let me do it, he's not going to let me do it, he's not going to let me do it, you're not going to let me do it, and maybe I get in, here, tap, okay. You might get 3 over 8 rounds of sparring. But if I go situationals, you can get 30 in 20 minutes much safer. So it would put us in a position, okay, and it would say, okay, Gilbert, you try to do this to prevent him from doing it. Carlos, work on that thing that we talked about, do it. Ready? You got 30 seconds, go, boom, and then stop. The teaching would occur, and then we're going to go again. Okay, try to do this, and we would practice what we call situationals, so we could get 30 reps at it. Do you guys use anything like that in
we do that because we have like drills, like, and you drill with your partner, and that's another thing in MMA. Okay, you're drilling BJJ, you're drilling wrestling, you're drilling kickboxing. it's so complicated again because you also have to understand you have 5 different trainers with 5 different mindsets that all wants the best for the fighter. So that's why it's a difficult sport to be like that. That's I always say I'm the so-called striking coach. I'm not telling these people how to do real naked choke.
Right.
I look at the BJJ train just to understand the movement, the situations, but I'm not telling Chris how to box. But I learn from his boxing, and I stay with my thing, and I think that's very important. In our sport is that if you're good at something, you need to concentrate on that, open for other stuff so that you understand it, but don't step on somebody else's field. And the other guy needs to understand it, and if you have that relationship, that took us like 8 years to get the right people with each other. Then for MMA, it's good, because again, in kickboxing I have one sensei. Whatever he says, we're going to do. We're not sparring, we're not going to train with another trainer, because that's not the way it is.
Right.
It's loyalty, there's no money involved, it's just your gym, and it's skills against skills. But in MMA, it's a business. So that's like other people that also have, and then they also have the good attention, and they have the knowledge, but on different fields, you know. So it's very hard to communicate if you're not on the same kind of understanding of it, you know. And again, I never fought in MMA, so I never fought with small gloves, and I never fought in the cage. I have 111 fights, but it's kickboxing. It's totally different. It's still competition. It's still fighting somebody else, but it's not MMA. So I can tell you easily come up from the floor and get away from the cage, but I've never been in that situation. But I understand it after 8 years. So can you imagine 4 different sports at the same time? It's very hard.
So how do you coach it in the corner? All right, so let's say you're coaching him, and like you say, you're the striking coach. So how do you give him the instructions if the instructions are related to?
I will touch my coach. Let's say with Greg and with I mean, they will say they know in the corner. That's the cool thing I think with us is, okay, I'm so-called the head coach because I'm a little. I like to first of all I'm a vocal guy, and I like to solve problems. So that's I'm always. Some people who think I'm too much, but I'm a guy that I'm stepping in because I want to do it good. Right? The guys who are next to me are like 2 different type of guys. One is quiet, he's like a master kind of quiet guy who sees everything and then does this to me and says things. And another guy who touches it, so you have a very good chemical in the corner. Like we have Daniel, with him we have Daniel who talks about stuff. I mean, you give a look at him sometimes think, what he's talking about. But he's right. And it works in the fights. So that's why in MMA, again, we have that little corner again. And Chris, at the highest level in boxing, knows that you need to trust that guy that's there, you know, whatever he says. But he won't trust me when I speak. Hey, go for a real naked choke. He will look at me like, oh, you.
So you have to, in the corner, you'll be boom, 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 and then you'll point to the coach and say, give him the instructions.
Or even if it's like if I was in the corner with, like, say, Chris, and that's like, that guy has good overhead right, like boxing-wise stuff. I don't even need to say it. We walk up we take the ice bag, we walk up on the stairs, Chris, you first.
Got it.
That guy first. And he talks.
Cool.
Yeah.
So boxing obviously different. It's one sport, man. It's just hands, just boxing. I have 2 very polar coaches in terms of their coaching style, in terms of what they're good at. Andre Razier and Keith Trimble. Keith Trimble is an MMA coach first. I'm his first professional boxer. So they take turns speaking. Andre will go first. He's the lead guy. Just because I like the way he speaks, but he'll talk and he'll talk to me for whatever. He'll point out certain things, and then the other coach will come in and he'll put in his points. And both of them have seen me throughout camp. I don't have both of them with me every session. So they kind of overlap in terms of what they're able to teach. But at the end of the day, it's up to that guy in the chair to make whatever happens. The coaches, even, he's saying, telling me about overhand right, he's cueing me. He's cueing me for what I know I need to do. I'm seeing what's out there too, but then that cue, he makes something that much more focused for me, so I can focus on that one thing. Or maybe I'm making a mistake that I don't even know I'm doing, and he brings it out from that immediately. That's my job now, is to fix that. So having different eyes is always good, and being able to communicate that to the fighter, because at the end of the day, they have to make it happen. Because you can tell me everything under the sun, if I don't go out there and do it, it doesn't matter.
So, for everybody who doesn't know this handsome young man, Gilbert Burns, the next 170 UFC champion, for sure.
Yes, sir.
we're saving our money because we're going to big bet on that. He's going to help me pay the down payment on my house. So he doesn't know it yet, but I'm in the market right now,
A
so
lot of pressure.
no pressure. Hey, no pressure. You lose, I lose my house. Okay, no pressure. So, what made you change other than your wife? Which I know is your boss and your agent. But what made you change to 170? What was the final straw?
There was a lot of points, but I think the main one was my nutrition. He was there my last weight cut, and the way he spoke to me, I was like, okay, yeah. It made me realize I was doing something wrong. And all the coach Carter was saying through the years, Henry was saying no one liked it, my wife didn't like it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God.
That's not around.
I've seen healthier people at concentration camps.
Oh, God.
You know when they pull people out of concentration camps, they look better than this. Look at that.
That's not his little brother.
And this is what Henry and Corey were talking about. This is the trade-off. I want to go through this to get the smaller guy.
Yeah.
Number one, everybody's doing it, so you're not getting a smaller guy. And number two, if you are getting a smaller guy, you're going to be a shadow of you. This is who's going in. Well, granted, it's 24 hours, so he looks a little bit more, but there's no way you're going to do that to a body, and in 24 hours, you're just going to be great. Yeah, I mean, even in the old days when IVs were allowed, it's still an aspect. And like we say, we don't know that brain hydration, how fast that occurs. You know, it's like if you miss the 2-hour windows of carbs on a carb-depleted muscle, you're not going to get days of like, oh, you know, don't worry about it. I'll do a steak later on tonight and I'll have an apple. No, if you miss that 2-hour window, it takes time to get glycogen back into the thing. Okay, if you drop 20 pounds in 3 days, okay, that's got to come from that body. So it's plasma. So your heart and your kidneys are pumping molasses. How long does that take to get back across the blood-brain barrier? Because the brain is just not open. It doesn't have a faucet. It's got a filter, and it doesn't allow too many things across that filter. It's in that blood-brain barriers where the acidity receptors are. So your muscle can get down to a pH of 4. Yeah, it'll burn and bother the shit out of you. You'll be like this trying to get rid of hydrogen. But that brain is the one that checks. Is it 7.2? 7.1? Shut you down. Because acid will burn you. So look at all of the stuff that you're dealing with when you're dealing with weight cuts. And I'm thinking that most of those things we don't know. We don't know what impact that has on the brain. And how long it takes for that brain to come back to normal.
I think there's an interesting point I'll let you talk about because I know you know the detail and you know the people involved. But if you look at boxing over the past, almost like the past 2 years ago,
About 2.5 years.
right, there was 3 deaths in boxing.
Three guys under 30 years of age who were top contenders. So 2 of them were undefeated. One guy had a few losses, but was still 26 years old. Have died. Two died. One of them is was in a persistent vegetative state for a long time now. Is a quadriplegic. And all 3 of these guys under 30 years of age. They were all, I know for a fact, they all cut a lot of weight just from knowing them personally, knowing their coaches. And oddly enough, or not, their contests that they were injured in all had a mandatory day of the fight re-weighing, where they had a limit to how much they could rehydrate from the day before leading up to the fight. I think this is tremendously dangerous. I've been trying to speak to anyone who will listen from the government agencies who are doing this in boxing and saying this is a very bad idea. The worst part about it, it's an absolute number. They're saying you get plus 10 pounds, not percentage. So a 180-pounder gets 10 pounds, a 122-pounder gets 10 pounds to gain from the weigh-in until the morning of the fight, which makes zero scientific sense whatsoever. So you have these kids who, they were all around 140 to 154, which are some of the weight classes where guys cut the most weight. Those middle weights for boxers. After that, guys don't cut as much. Under that, guys do cut a lot too. But those guys in those middle weights do cut, but they also hit really hard too. So that's where you see a lot of damage. all three of those guys had a mandatory day of the fight weigh-in where they only allowed plus 10 pounds. Limiting rehydration is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. You don't see guys getting injured because one guy's too big. You see guys getting injured because one guy's too dehydrated, just like JC said. We don't know exactly how the brain rehydrates and how much time it takes, what the processes are from here to here exactly yet. So I think it's a very dangerous thing that's being done right now, and is exactly what JC's saying. We don't know exactly, and to make rules like that is dumb.
Sir, you got guys losing 20, 25 pounds, putting on 10 pounds and go out there and fight.
And then getting hit in the head. That's great.
For 12 rounds.
That's fantastic.
That's the standard rule?
No, it's for, the IBF has it, it's the International Boxing Federation has a second day weigh-in, and I've worked with fighters who had that, and I literally said, get rid of your belt. Relinquish the belt. You don't have to pay the sanctioning fee, you're going to lose the belt, you win the fight, you lose the belt, whatever, but...
Is that one of those guys Pressure Colon? Or something else?
What's that?
Is one of those guys Pressure Colon?
Pressure Colon, yes. Pressure Colon was one. So he fought in, I believe that was a state rule. It might have been Virginia or something like that. Wherever they fought, they had that rule.
Yeah.
Pritchard Colon was one.
Yeah.
Patrick Bay was another one. He was fighting for the IBF Intercontinental title. And then the third, yeah. The third was Maxim Bereshev, and he was last summer. And yeah, he was an undefeated guy. And I believe that was another IBF title eliminator.
Question for you. I know that when I met you, and then when we started training, we used to go fairly heavy, you know, on our strength phase. You used to do deadlifts. You had 3 plates on each side. You had deadlifts of over 300 pounds for doubles and triples, because he's strong. You know, some people are not naturally strong. He's naturally strong. I mean, look, you can just see his morphology, his legs, his wrists, and he's just a strong cat. Yeah, his small, bow-tie neck, you know, it's very good for tuxedo look, you know. But, explain to them how you feel now with the light. When was the last time you deadlifted 300 pounds here? 2 years?
Yeah, we're not doing that heavy, but I still feel very strong, but not that heavy.
What did you feel in that Woodley fight when you kept saying, Coach, we're not training, we're not even like, we're not even turning the circuits that we used to turn for time. 525, 540, now those circuits take us 7 minutes because of the psychomotor vigilance. Now I can ask him to do certain things that he would pace himself for, because what I learned is that neuromuscular efficiency is incredible. Everything is that. I have a friend that works for VersaClimb, and that's all he does, VersaClimber. And the dude can hit VersaClimber and almost rest on the VersaClimber because he has that his coordination is so incredible. It's like the boxers that can skip rope for an hour and they spar for 30 seconds and they're tired because they're so efficient that they're not even working. Okay? So I was able to ask him for more on the VersaClimber. But he would say, but I'm going to be tired for the super legs. I'm going to go, no, because I'm going to teach you how to rest when you're tired. And so he would go harder on the super legs, harder on everything, because then I would give him whatever he needed. I said, you can rest whatever you want. You just have to be vigilant when you're resting. So I would move him around and chase him, make him chase real. And when I say chase real, I mean, you know, fighting chasing, not like hide and seek chase, you know? And so he would tell me, he was saying, we're not working as hard, but I'm so tired. And it was the brain, but his body, nothing hurt. So how did you feel after we moved to that type of training where it's not as compressed as before, it's just compress, fight, compress, fight, compress, fight. How did you feel on the Tyro Wood where you looked so good?
I remember asking him,
Oh yeah, he asked me the 4th round what round it was. I said it's the 4th round. Really? Yeah. You got only 5 more minutes to show everybody how great you are. Okay. You didn't get tired at all.
But that's what we as coaches have traditionally been used to, and skilled coaches too. Beat the shit out of your people so they're ready. And I'm now convinced that people don't become ready because they didn't get enough shit done. They didn't become ready because they didn't train to be ready. So I've seen it. Guys who are in great shape, but they fight at a certain tempo. And when you raise that tempo and you get them out of that vigilance, where now they're not here. They have to be here. That is like a heavy day at the office, where you're making decisions and you finish the day and you're exhausted and you haven't done anything. And it's that exhaustion, I think, that we're working on. Because believe it or not, we were doing too much metabolic stuff. If this can only take 14 ounces of water, 16 ounces ain't gonna do me no good. So my question is, how many car pushes did he need to get ready for a fight? How many rounds does he need to get ready for a fight? And the thing is, he's in plenty shape. What I felt was needed was he needed to stay sharp. And if it's not for Tyrone Woodley, because I didn't train him like that against the Russian, because I was afraid of the Russian. I was afraid of his new weight class for that Russian. 170, short, against an undefeated Russian, I just didn't like it. Okay, but he said, look, I'm in shape, coach. I've been helping Robbie Lawler. And I go, well, if he's been sparring with Robbie Lawler, give me Robbie Lawler for 4 weeks. He says, I've looked at my schedule, coach. I've looked at my schedule. I'm in shape. I'm going, I want it, but if you decide to, I'm with you 100%. We couldn't do anything. Okay? So I wasn't afraid of that. I was afraid of Tyrone Woodley. And I've only one thing that pop that Tyrone has. That pop that he has that'll move things really quick. So I said, if he doesn't catch you, you got him. But you got to stay vigilant. You got to stay vigilant. And we worked that vigilance out of control. Henry was even kind enough to come in here, and we would get this guy tired on airtime, and then Henry, sharp. And the thing that I kept going is faster, faster. Because I noticed, even in sports training, they tempo it. They tempo it. And these guys get so good at dancing together that they're great dance partners, and he knows what he's going to do, he knows what he's going to do, and they move. You know? And that's fine, but what I try to do here is get him out of that. I don't want him to dance with me. I want him to react. There's a difference. There's a difference. In practice, you can dance. But when I'm doing the psychomotor vigilance, that has to be the and you have to stay really, really sharp. And I think that was a determining factor in how sharp he was for what. And mind you, he'll tell you, metabolically, it was the easiest camp he had. No car pushes, right? He used to do 5 car pushes here. And let me tell you, you do 1 car push around here, your legs are wasted. He used to do 5. If we were getting ready for 3 rounds, we have days where we would do 5. Okay? We don't even need that anymore. I'll do a car push here and there, but it's not like before. It's not like before. So, how do you feel now with this new thing that we've done, which we've lowered the strength component, and we've kept the metabolic more or less the same, even dropped it a little bit?
Sounds better, no injury, no super compensation, no shoulders.
And he even goes on the bench sometimes heavier than I like, because the 2 young bucks, they want to play, so they put 3 plates. I'm going 3 plates. Like, 3 plates, man. But he hammers them pretty easy, so I let him go. But those big bench presses are the ones that mess with the shoulders and all that. We don't need that. We don't need that. You know?
If you had to give a person that's sort of following your footsteps as coaches, as athletes, a message or tips going in the same field, what would you say from your guys' experience, from coaches and athletes?
Me?
Well, everybody. I'll just go down the line. I'll just go down the line.
Well, I also had a question for you guys, but for the strength conditioning guys. But it is a little bit of the answer that I'll give you. Is that, again, traditional sports, where I come from, we do a lot of repetitions, simple stuff, and we do it good, and we know when to do it, we make the right decision at the right time, and we are very in a risky business, because you make one mistake, you're on your ass. It's totally different than any other sport. It's a very lonely sport, and what makes me always curious, and talking to him a lot about it, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because I think you're not like that. But I see a lot of strength and conditioning coaches doing a lot of like so-called innovation stuff and like the most. If you look at it, I think it's funny. Like they do so much stuff and they think it's working for the fighter. You know, it's like you know they throw stuff at you when you're running. You have to catch a fucking boomerang, all that shit. And listen, I'm not saying bad stuff about other coaches, but I just want to understand. I just want to understand something. Like if you have 20% of what you guys do to add to us, to the sport that these people have to go to, they have to fight. Why in the hell, if you have 20%, why in the hell try to make it so difficult if you know that you guys are so knowledgeable about food, about strength, about why does the other guys all just do all this funny stuff? Is it just because they want to be a part of something?
Social media, it's clicks. It's YouTube. So people look at it like, wow! And then...
No, but I see that, first of all, and that the trainers that are training them, that they think that so first of all, communication is very important, right? So if you have training in the morning, the trainer knows what you're doing, you kind of know that you already know how to punch, you know how hard it is, and they still try to throw all this stuff, while we've been doing all simple stuff, and what I see from you, because I've been here a couple simple stuff, and it all works, you know, but why is there still these people just, why didn't they just follow the footsteps and keep it like very simple? Because again, in my sport in striking, I'm not, they also so-called be the super coach and everything, but I'm not doing anything special. It's still a 1-2, 1-1-2.
But that's what makes you a great coach. It's the MacGyver.
Good patient, right?
Simple stuff, you know. Oh, the car doesn't start, and you have a paper clip. Oh, here, boom. And you fix the stuff with the simple things work. Because you're right, you know what? It's still, any way you cut it,
Yeah.
It's left, right, hook, takedown, and the basics. You know, talking to Hoist Gracie. I spent about 2-3 hours at one of the nights talking to Hoist. He goes, it's simple stuff. He goes, hell yeah, simple stuff. I was small. I was just wait my time, let him get tired, and it was always the same thing. Arm bar, guillotine, rear naked, try it.
But we have a beautiful gym, we have the best coaches in the world, we have the best people in the world, but we're still losing fights to people that have none of this. We're still losing fights to people that have no great coaches and no good training.
And that's what we were talking about. What's making people better? And if you're losing to people that are not doing what you're doing, then you gotta go, okay, is what I'm doing making him better? And then how come he's not doing it and he's beating his ass? It's what I tell everybody. We're not making people better on the training side. That's not what's making them bigger, faster, stronger. What's making the sport bigger, faster, stronger is the democratization of sport. Okay? At first, we didn't have the athletes that we have now. We had the same people, but it's a new sport. We have bouncers, we have pit fighters, we have people stomping on heads while they're holding out. That's who came. But there was $50,000, and you have to fight 4 times in a night. Who wants to do that? The pit fighter and the bouncer, the Tank Abbots of the world. Now, it's a $7 billion company, okay? And some of these guys are making millions of dollars. That attracts more eyes, more genetic potential. So now you start getting the John Jones. A long time ago, we got the St. Pierre's. Before that, we got the Matt Hughes. Before that, we had Hoist Gracie. So the democratization of sport has allowed to bring the genetic pool. Now you're choosing from 1 million potential athletes. That's a lot of genetic stuff, and that's why, as the genetics gets better, okay, you have to understand that as strength and conditioning coaches, this is another thing, ego-driven. The strength and conditioning coach, okay, is up and coming. Personal training is only 36 years old, brand new, okay? We want to be somebody. We want strength and conditioning coach. I'm important. You are important, but you're more like a broker of resources. That's what Corey was saying. As a strength and conditioning coach, you have the ability to pull back and say, okay, what about nutrition? What about your rest? When are you training with Henri? Henri, when is he going hard? So I know what to do here. And communication. So you can be the broker of his resources. Resources, energy, sleep, bone, ligament. You're controlling and protecting that. That's your job. And you have to understand, as a strength and conditioning coach, you step out of the way. Your job is not to make a better fighter. That's his job. Your job is to make him better for practice, because it's at practice where he's getting good. That's where he's chunking.
A better athlete?
You make him a better athlete here, so then he can make him a better fighter.
Yeah.
So my job is to hand Henry, a great athlete that's capable of going an hour if he needs, charge him. Now where he fades in 20 minutes and Henry's saying, do this, and I'm like, all right, no. Here, for an hour and a half, that's my job. Make him hardy so he can take the training and step out of the way. Most trainers want to be, I'm the strength and conditioning, I'm going to beat his ass and he's going to be in shape because of me. No, wrong approach. Wrong approach. Let him make the fight. Give him the athlete and step out. And that's why I don't go to any fights. I went to 2 fights, I think, both with Jeff Munson. Okay? I do my job here. I realized it early. Vitor asked me to go to his fight. Thank God I didn't go because I couldn't stand for that last meeting that it took from him. He was in the best shape of his life. But anyways, he asked me to go. No, I won't go. I will not go. I'm here. I'm here for this guy 8 weeks out. I put my love into him. I put everything into him. And then I'm at home. Let them do. That's their job. So don't come in swinging like this is your world, because it's not. It's his world. And these guys are the ones who make them better. Support the training. That's the big thing. One of the reasons that actually bringing back down the training actually gives them more resources. And I understand now that you have to have energy to rest. That's the one thing that's the biggest. Wow. You want to fall asleep? You can't fall asleep exhausted. One thing is collapsing, and the other thing is resting, recovering. 2 different things, and fighters think it's one and the same. No, you need energy to sleep. And if I exhaust the living daylights out of him, and he has insomnia because he's beating him up, I'm beating him up, and he's just getting beat up, then guess what happens? Upper respiratory infection is the next thing that happens. Now he's down. So that's the one thing that you have to check your ego at the door. Support the technical training. That's our job. It's not to take main stage.